Welcome back to The Critique. Today we're looking at a really ambitious script submission. It's trying to synthesize James Clear's Atomic Habits, specifically the British cycling stuff and the Four Laws, and then weave that into a story about a founder named Abhay.
It's a high-wire act for sure.
It is, and the ambition is great, but I think right now the execution is, well, it's a bit disjointed. So let's get into why and maybe how to fix it.
Yeah, it's a bold choice, structurally. Trying to blend that hard nonfiction with, a real character drama is tough, and honestly, it feels like the draft is struggling to pick a lane.
That's the core issue, I think. The draft effectively uses this character, Abhay, to try and humanize all these abstract concepts.
Right.
Yet the structural transition between the, let's say, dry theoretical parts and his emotional story just feels incredibly clunky.
It's jarring. I honestly felt like I was getting whiplash reading it. The script just oscillates so violently between these two modes.
How so?
Well, one minute, I'm getting this, lecture-style retelling of the British cycling team and Dave Brailsford. 1908 stats, heated pants, the whole history lesson.
The full breakdown.
The full breakdown, and then bam, I'm dropped into a small, messy bedroom with the guy scrolling on his phone at 11 at night.
It's that block structure, isn't it? It feels like the writer is saying, okay, time to eat your vegetables, here's the theory.
Exactly.
And then, okay, now you get dessert, here's the story.
And that separation is just killing the momentum. You're asking the listener to jump from Olympic medals to a guy feeling depressed about his screen time. The connection isn't seamless.
So the theory feels like it's interrupting the story.
Yes. It feels like a commercial break, rather than the engine that's actually driving the story. If you keep them separate, you just dilute both of them. You don't care about the cycling because you want to get back to Abhay.
And you don't fully get Abhe's actions because the theory feels like it was 10 minutes ago.
Right. So the fix has to be integration. We've got to weave that aggregation of marginal gains theory directly into Abhe's timeline, not keep them as these separate clunky blocks.
Okay, so don't pause the story to explain the idea.
No, you embed the idea in the action. I mean, look at that section where Abhay starts his morning routine. Currently, the script just stops. It gives us 3 minutes on Dave Brailsford rubbing alcohol on tires, and then we go back to Abhay stretching.
Which just grinds the pacing to a halt.
Completely. Instead, you have Abhay apply that specific logic to his morning routine in real time. Frame it so that Abhay is redesigning his own life the same way Brailsford redesigned those bike seats.
So instead of the history lesson, we see Abhay maybe looking down at his yoga mat?
Yes. Exactly. The script mentions he starts with just 5 minutes of stretching. That's the moment. Explicitly label that action, that tiny 5-minute window, as his marginal gain.
Right in the moment.
In the moment. Have the narrator say something like, just as Brailsford adjusted the bike seat by a fraction to win gold, Abhay adjusted his morning by 5 minutes to win his day. Make the stretching the intellectual equivalent of the alcohol-rubbed tires.
So the story becomes the lesson. You're demonstrating, not lecturing.
Precisely. And if I never hear the date 1908 again in the script, it'll be a huge improvement. We get the point. Show us the point through the character.
Well, speaking of the British cycling story, that brings us to the hook, to the opening of the whole piece. While that Dave Brailsford example is, foundational to the book, relying on it as the primary hook risks losing an expert audience that's probably heard this specific story 1,000 times.
It is the hello world of habit literature. It's just too safe. If your audience is people who know James Clear, which this script seems to be aiming for, opening with that losing streak is basically begging them to hit the skip 15 seconds button.
It signals, I'm about to tell you something you already know.
Exactly. It establishes credibility, I guess, but it totally sacrifices curiosity. The listener just thinks, oh, the bike story. Got it. 1% better. And they've already tuned out before you've even introduced Abhay.
So we need a pivot, a different hook, something that grabs the attention right away. Maybe a less overused, more visual metaphor from the book.
There are so many better options in the text that just don't get enough love. I mean, why not the paperclip strategy?
Oh, the story about Stephen, the bank employee?
Yes, the guy who moved 120 paper clips from one jar to another for every single sales call. Think about the audio potential there.
Right.
Instead of opening with generic Olympic applause or a bike chain whirring, you open with a sharp, distinct clink.
That creates immediate suspense. The listener has to ask, what is that sound?
Right. Clink, clink, clink. And then you explain. That is the sound of a career being built one tiny action at a time. It's tactile, it's visual, and it directly relates to income growth, which fits Abhai's startup story way better than cycling ever will.
It also sets up that visual of progress, which becomes a huge theme later on.
Or you could go a different way. Look at the Polgar sisters' chess experiment. Open with that. You immediately get into environment over talent, which sets up the whole system over goal argument much faster than the cycling story.
And it frames Abhai's story better.
It frames him perfectly. He isn't some elite Olympian. He's a normal guy trying to engineer genius in a normal home.
Which makes him so much more relatable. Okay, so let's go deeper into Abhai's head now. The script spends a lot of time on identity-based habits, which is, it's the core psychological shift in the book.
Right. The section distinguishing between outcome-based and identity-based is intellectually sound, but it feels like it's missing a massive opportunity to use dialogue to really demonstrate that shift.
It's way too academic. It reads like a textbook definition. You know, the draft uses that classic smoker example. No thanks, I'm trying to quit, versus no thanks, I don't smoke.
We've all heard it.
We've all heard it. It's a fine example, but it's so generic.
And then it just tells us Abe applied this. It says Abe realized he needed to change who he was.
Which is just boring. He realized he needed to change. Great. How? What did that actually feel like? The draft tells us he changed his identity, but it doesn't dramatize the internal conflict. We don't hear the gears grinding in his head. So we need to use the Abadi narrative to internalize this dialogue, move beyond the generic smoker, and show Abai fighting his old self.
And there is a perfect moment for this in the script already, but it's completely wasted. Look at the scene where he gets that negative feedback from a client. The client calls his work immature.
Ouch. Yeah, that's a trigger moment.
Right now, the script says Abai just asks himself, what would a responsible entrepreneur do? And then he moves on. It's too smooth. It's robotic.
No real person does that.
No one just asks a calm question like that when they've been insulted. You get defensive.
Of course.
So rewrite the scene to be visceral. Show the old identity reacting. Have Abai type out a furious, defensive email. Who do you think you are? My work is fine. Let us feel him hovering over the send button. That is the outcome mindset, trying to protect his ego.
And then what happens?
Then stops. He looks at the screen, and he deletes it. Not because he wants the client's money, but because he creates a new mantra for himself. An entrepreneur doesn't react, they respond. That internal monologue, the typing, the pause, the deleting, that is where the identity shift happens. That is voting for a new identity.
It makes that concept of voting tangible. Every action is a vote. Deleting that email was a vote for the new Abba.
Precisely. And you could do the same thing with food. Contrast the goal of losing 10 kilograms with the system. Don't just say he stuck to a diet. Show him staring at a piece of cake at a birthday party. The old Abba says, "Oh, I can't eat that, I'm on a diet." The new Abba thinks, "I'm a person who doesn't miss workouts, and this cake doesn't help that person." Give him the actual dialogue.
That leads us right into the physical side of things, his environment. The material makes a compelling case for environment design over willpower, particularly in the 4 laws of behavior change section, but I'm sensing a bit of a contradiction in how the script handles motivation.
It's more than a contradiction, it feels like a gap in the logic. The script argues, correctly, based on the book, that motivation is overrated. It says environment is the invisible hand. We're shaped by where we are, not just by what we want.
Okay, but then later, Abai uses temptation bundling with Bollywood music to get himself hyped up for a workout.
Right, so he's relying on the music to get motivated. The listener is left a little confused. Are we supposed to be removing friction and relying on our environment? Or are we trying to pump ourselves up with fun music? The link between removing the bad stuff and adding the fun stuff needs to be much tighter.
So we should probably group the feedback on the coup, making it obvious, and the response, making it easy, under this bigger umbrella of environment architecture.
Yes, the music isn't just motivation, it's part of the architecture.
So how would we fix this in the scene itself?
You have to contrast the friction with the flow. Use that 12-digit password example from the book. The script mentions it briefly, making your password so complex that it's annoying to log into social media. That's creating high friction.
And contrast that with the Amsterdam airport fly in the urinal example, making the target so obvious you can't miss it.
Exactly. So for Abe, show him doing both at the same time. Don't just have him turn on the music. Show him physically hiding his phone in the other room. That's the high friction part. Then show him walking into his living room, where he's already set up his reading corner with a comfy chair and the book waiting on the pillow. That's low friction.
So the music is just the cherry on top of that system.
The music is the attractive layer. The real work was the architecture. And the narrator needs to state that explicitly. Abe didn't find the willpower to work out. He didn't suddenly become a disciplined person. He just designed a room where working out was the path of least resistance.
That's a powerful distinction. It takes the pressure off the listener to be strong and puts the focus on being smart.
Exactly. Be the architect, not the victim of your environment.
Okay, so we have to talk about the ending. The conclusion touches on the Goldilocks zone and the need to endure boredom, which is a really sophisticated point. But the current draft, it feels a little too Disney for me.
It totally pulls its punches. The script ends on this really high note. You know, Abe is blasting his Bollywood tracks, he's dancing, he's crushing his startup goals, he's happy.
And that's a problem?
It's a huge problem because it's a lie. The source material explicitly states that successful people get bored too. The difference isn't that they don't get bored, it's that they carry on when they are bored. The current ending ignores the whole boredom aspect of the Goldilocks role.
It suggests that once you build the habit, it's always fun.
Which just sets the listener up for failure. Because 3 weeks in, it is not going to be fun. We need to introduce a moment where the system feels like a grind to truly validate that boredom argument.
So we need to hurt Abe a little bit.
Mentally, yes. The script mentions that analogy of playing tennis against a 10-year-old versus Roger Federer. Too easy, you're bored. Too hard, you quit. You need to be in the middle. But staying in the middle is a grind.
Give me a scene. How do we rewrite that ending?
Show us a Tuesday in November. It's raining outside. It's cold. Abe turns on the Bollywood music and nothing happens. He doesn't feel like dancing. He feels stupid. He looks at that little star sticker on his calendar and thinks, this is for children. I'm a grown man. This doesn't matter.
That's the moment of truth right there.
That is the Goldilocks moment. Most people quit there because the novelty is gone. Show a boy looking at the rain, looking at the stupid sticker, sighing, and then doing the push-ups anyway.
That's the real victory.
That is the victory, not the dancing. The sighing and doing it anyway. That's the true definition of the Goldilocks zone. Working at the edge of your ability even when the dopamine is gone. If we only show the party, we aren't preparing the listener for the reality of the long haul.
That leads perfectly into our final point about those stickers and paper clips. The application of the reward law is creative, but it could be sharpened by focusing on the difference between immediate versus delayed gratification.
Yeah, this is a subtle point, but it's vital for the logic of the script. The draft talks about delayed gratification generally. You know, the idea that his startup will succeed in 2 years or he'll get fit in 6 months. But the examples it uses, the star stickers, the paper clips, those are all immediate.
The script kind of blurs that line. It almost acts like the sticker is the reward.
Which can feel a little childish. Like, why would a CEO care about a sticker? We need to clarify that the paperclip strategy and the star sticker are necessary proxies. They are stand-ins because the actual reward is invisible.
You mean the compound effect?
Exactly. The script mentions 1% better every day. But you can't see 1%. If I do push-ups today, I look exactly the same in the mirror tomorrow, and that is so demoralizing.
Okay.
So the rewrite needs to explicitly link that paperclip visual to that invisibility. It has to emphasize that the paperclip is the only evidence that anything even happened.
So the narrator should say something like, Abai couldn't see his muscles growing. He couldn't see his bank account growing. But he could see the paperclip moving from the left jar to the right jar.
Yes, and emphasize that the paperclip is a dopamine hit that is replacing the phone notification. The book talks about how the feeling you get after reading a message is a reward. We're hacking that system. The script needs to say something like, Abai didn't get a six-pack that day. He got a paperclip. And he had to train his brain to believe that the paperclip was enough.
That tightens the logic so much. It turns a cute detail into a neuroscience detail. It explains why the hack works instead of just listing it.
And that's really the theme of all our feedback today, isn't it? Don't just list the hack, explain the mechanism through the story.
Okay, let's wrap this up. We've thrown a lot at the writer today. What are the big takeaways for the next draft?
I think it's 4 big shifts. First, integration. Stop treating the cycling theory and the Abahai story like they're just roommates. Move them in together. Make the stretching be the cycling theory.
Second, the hook.
Kill the British cycling intro. It's just too played out. Go for the Paperclips or the Polgar sisters. Give us a sound or a visual that we haven't heard 1,000 times before.
Third, show the work.
Dramatize that identity shift. Don't just tell us he changed. Show us the struggle. Show us the deleted email. Let us feel that internal fight.
And finally, get real.
End on the grind, not the party. Validate the boredom. And explain why those silly little rewards are the only way to survive that boredom.
To the listener who submitted this, you really have the raw materials of a fantastic episode here. The idea of synthesizing Clear's work with a narrative arc is exactly the kind of ambitious writing we love to see. It just needs to be tighter, grittier, and way more integrated.
Yeah, we want to see the version where the seams just disappear. Where I don't know where James Clear ends and Ave begins. That's the goal.
We would love to see where you take this. Revise it, tighten those screws,